There are a lot of lists that tell you what tunes you should learn, and by their very nature, they're for guitarists who are pretty new to jazz. But quite a few of the tunes that show up on that list are clearly not for beginners. In this video, we're going to take a look at 5 of those tunes and see why they're so challenging, and in the process, you'll learn the easiest way to navigate your way through them, if you dare. When I went to Berklee, they started me off on some tunes that were way beyond my ability. Basically, they were teaching me what they thought I should know, not what I needed. That's probably why half of my freshman class didn't show up for the second year. Now, if you do that, you're more likely to quit too. So it's important that you start off with tunes that are at your level. We're going to look at 5 tunes that are found on many of these lists. They're great tunes and they're well known. They're just really not for beginners. And we're not including tunes that everybody knows are difficult, like tunes by Coltrane or Wayne Shorter. We'll save those for later. One reason these tunes are on the list is that at first glance, they seem pretty easy. Often the melodies are simple, but that usually means the chord changes have to be a little bit more interesting. Most of these tunes have unusual progressions and modulations. See, easy modulations move 1 or 2 steps on the circle or to a parallel key. These all move 3 or more steps to an unrelated key. And sometimes the form is irregular too. So now let's take a look. We're going to start with Green Dolphin Street. This was the first chart we wrote in arranging class at Berklee. Fortunately, it was a head arrangement because there's no way I could have soloed over it. Now, Miles played it in E flat, but we'll use the real book version in the key of C. The key feature of the A section is a pedal tone. That means the bass note C is going to be held while the chords above change. So here's the chord progression. Now, while these changes make sense, each chord has a different key center. Now, we could think of it as modes, but we could also just think about them as being major scales. But there is an easier way. We can think of each chord as a triad over the C pedal. So C major 7 is E minor over C, and then C minor 7 is E flat over C. This leaves us with the progression E minor, E flat, D, D flat, and C. Now for the first chord, we'll play in C major, but for the rest of them, you can use a minor pentatonic scale descending by half steps. So starting on C minor pentatonic, and then B, B flat, and then ending on A minor pentatonic, or C major if you prefer. Now that requires some pretty heavy-duty theory, and you're still changing scales for every chord, but at least it's manageable now. At letter B, there's a 2-5-1 in C, followed by a 2-5-1 in E flat. But if you look at the melody, you'll see that there are flat 9 and sharp 9 notes on both the dominant chords. Now you could get away with just playing the 2 5s, but adding those notes will make it better. Letter C can all be played in the key of C, with just the addition of a few target notes. If you'd like to learn about target notes, check out this video. The next tune on our list is Have You Met Miss Jones? Now this is one of the tunes that can really fool you because it's in standard 32 AABA song form. The A sections are straight ahead and simple, 1-6-2-5, 3-6-2-5, and at the end of the second A, a 2-5 into the 4. That's all really standard, but the bridge is something else entirely. So the bridge starts out in B flat, the 4 chord, but then there's a 2-5 into G flat, followed by a 2-5-1 into D major, another 2-5 back to G flat, and then a 2-5 taking us back to F in the last A section. Those keys are all a major third apart, which is very similar to giant steps, and we all know that's not an easy tune. So how are you going to play over this? There's really no way around it. You're going to have to learn how to move through keys. The A section's simple, it's just an F, but the bridge will take some effort. You'll have to work on the 2 5s in each of the keys, and you should also practice on just moving from one key center to the next by playing your scales. Any way you look at it, this is not going to be an easy tune for beginners. The next tune on our list is by one of the most important composers in jazz, Antonio Carlos Jobim. Before Jobim, there were very few Latin tunes played in a jazz set. Now it's pretty much obligatory. He was a brilliant composer blending jazz harmonies with Latin forms, but they aren't easy. In fact, this entire video could be Jobim tunes. But I chose The Girl from Ipanema as it's the most famous. Now this one has a pretty bad reputation. It's kind of associated with elevator jazz, but as you'll see, it's not the tune's fault. Now it was originally in D flat, but the real book put it in F, so that's the most common key. The form is AABA, and like Miss Jones, the A section is standard. It's pretty similar to Take the A Train. 1, 5, 7, a 2, 2, 5, 1, except there's a tritone sub replacing the 5, 7. The tritone sub is a concept I generally save for level 2 students, but if you want to know more about them, check out this video. So just like Miss Jones, it's the bridge that's challenging here. For starters, it's 16 bars, not 8. And each of the first 6 chords requires a different chord scale. And even the 3-6-2-5 progression at the end has a little twist by ending on the flat 5 on both the D7 and C7 chords. But with a little theory, we can find a way through this. We can substitute an E flat minor 7 for the G flat major 7 chord. And we'll call it D sharp minor 7. And so now our progression is D sharp minor 7, B7, F sharp minor 7, D7, G minor 7, E flat 7. So each one of those is a minor 7th chord descending by a major 3rd to a dominant 7th chord. So as you can see, it's a sequence. So now you only have to learn the pattern of the minor 7 moving to the dominant 7th, and then move it up and down the neck. And for the 3-6-2-5 progression, you can play that in F and then land on the flat 5 on the dominant chords. One of the first tunes they asked me to learn at Berkeley was All the Things You Are. It's a classic tune, but it was way over my head. It modulates to unrelated keys in unusual places, and even the form is irregular. The key signature is 4 flats, but you're never really sure what key you're in until the end. The A section starts in F minor, or A flat if you prefer, with a circle progression. Now you should be familiar with that from tunes like Autumn Leaves or Fly Me to the Moon. But instead of completing the progression, after the 4 chord, it moves up a half step to a 2-5-1 in the key of C. Now that's 4 steps on the circle of fifths. We call the next section A prime, since it's the same thing, but it's been transposed down a 4th. So we start on C minor and end up in G major. And there's even a little twist there because the 2 chord is a borrowed chord, A minor 7 flat 5. So in the first 16 bars, we have 4 keys. So mercifully, the bridge stays in G for the first 4 bars. But then there's another direct modulation to an unrelated key, a 2-5-1 into E major. And then finally a C augmented to take us back to F minor and the last A section, but not quite. The last A starts out the same, but this time after the 4 chord, it goes to the subdominant minor in what appears to be a backdoor cadence. But it doesn't resolve to 1. Instead, it goes to 3, which is then followed by a B diminished chord, substituting for the F7 chord, before finishing with a 2-5-1 in the A flat. And this is the first time we really know what key we're in. Are you confused yet? So the best way to start playing over this tune is to follow the melody, as it targets the 3rd of most of the chords. For the A section, you'll want to be able to handle that pivot from one key to the next. So the first section, play D flat major 7 and D minor 7, and you'll want to work. And then you'll also want to be able to play A flat major 7 to A minor 7 flat 5. On the bridge, you'll be working on 2 5s in the key of G and the key of E. And then for the last A, you'll need to be able to play the 4 chord going to the 4 minor chord. And you'll also want to handle the diminished chord. Now, diminished chords are a big topic. So for now, I'd suggest just targeting the root B. Any way you look at it, this is a hard tune, and it's going to take a lot of work. Now, this last tune is probably going to surprise you. So what? So what, you say? It's only 2 chords. Well, that's the problem. It's only 2 chords. Listen what happens if I play one note over the chord progression of There'll Never Be Another You. So I didn't change the note, but the chord progression still made it kind of interesting. Now, if I do that and so what, it's going to be pretty boring. I'm sure you're thinking that with just one chord at a time, it's pretty easy to solo on. But the problem is that it's all on you. You really have to have one of two things, either the gift of melody like Miles did. If you listen to his solo, you'll notice that it's just a really nice melody that's developing an idea, and it could be a song in itself. But then there's also the art of development. Coltrane and Cannonball have a different approach. And listen to how they take an idea and work and develop it throughout the solo. But the challenge in modal tunes is to keep it interesting. And most beginners don't have those skills or chops. There's one other challenge when you're soloing, and that's not to turn the form around. See, the form is AABA, so that means that there's going to be 24 bars of D minor in a row. It's really easy to lose track of which section you're on. Then there's the chords. You see, this is a modal tune. There are no diatonic chords in a mode. You can basically play any note you want at any time in any combination. Listen to Bill Evans's intro and comping. You can hear he's not just sitting there playing D minor and E minor. In modal tunes, you need chordal voicings, voicings in seconds, fourths, fifths, and these are all pretty advanced concepts. So save these tunes for later. They're great tunes and you'll want to learn them eventually, but if you try to learn them before you're ready, you're just setting yourself up for frustration. So what other tunes have you found to be too challenging? Drop a comment below and I'll take a look at them in a future video. Now, as a reward for sticking around to this point in the video, I'd like to offer you a free PDF with my analysis of these 5 tunes. To get it, you just join my free Patreon group. You'll also find PDFs from other videos there, and I post tips and hints too. But if you really want to take it to the next level, you'll want to sign up for the personalized feedback tier. You can learn a lot from books and YouTube, but the right notes aren't all there is to playing jazz. If you really want to start making progress, you need feedback from an experienced pro. I hear things that you don't hear yet, and that just comes from experience. And as a college professor, I spent 30 years listening to my students' music and helping them make it better. Private lessons with me are $100 an hour. But for just $10 a month, you can upload a video of your playing, and I'll respond with a video critique and suggestions on what to work on. The tier is limited to just 20 charter members, and once it's filled, that's it. You won't find a better deal anywhere, so if you're serious about jazz guitar, you need to sign up for this now. Click the link below to join. Okay, so here are some tips to help you get through those tunes that are just a little too hard for you. First, don't overplay. Keep it simple. You don't have to run the changes. Clean, simple ideas are going to be fine. And then play a little bit more over the easier parts. Second, use plenty of space. This gives you time to think, and if you aren't sure what to play, well, don't play. For example, on Have You Met Miss Jones, if you skip the 2-5-1 in D, it's a lot easier to get through that bridge. Next, find the target notes. The target notes define the chords that are outside of the key, so if you hit those, you're making the changes. Don't be afraid to recycle your ideas. If an idea worked once, try it again. If it works on an F sharp minor 7, it'll work on a G minor 7. Just move it up. And then finally, if you aren't comfortable on a tune, sit out. You don't have to play every tune at a jam session. You can sit down whenever you want. So you might be wondering, what tunes should you play instead? Well, the first suggestion is bebop heads. See, most bebop tunes were written on simple progressions like rhythm changes or blues, or just some basic standards. And they're like instruction manuals on how to play jazz. Another great song, Round Midnight. This looks like it's pretty complicated, but it's really just a basic minor chord progression with a beautiful melody. And then there's Stella by Starlight. It's also a lot easier than it looks. You can pretty much play over it in one key with just a few notes thrown in. And then one of my favorites is There'll Never Be Another You. And if you want to see how to play on that, check out this video.